to get one hire, you're probably gonna need about 50 to 75 applications. You need about 10 interviews. 10 interviews should get you 3 finalists. We found the group interview is killer. I asked this question to a guy one time, and it was something about him wanting to finally be successful with his business. When I asked him that second time, he's like, my wife didn't believe in me and I wanted to prove that wrong. So our sales process is helping build the belief that our method of building a sales team is the best way to actually do it. So basically there's 7 beliefs the prospect needs to have to buy. There's pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, trust.
What are the attributes that you're looking for in salespeople?
It's gonna be always these 3 things. One is,
Cole Gordon, I appreciate you hanging out, man. It's always good to see you.
always good. Good to see you as well.
So we met not too long ago, and in real short order, I found out that we have like a bazillion clients that overlap.
Yeah.
And that is because you seem to do a really, really good job of helping them with sales. Can you give me a little background on the company and what you do in general?
Yeah, well, we try to do a good job. So, I mean, we have 2 companies. At the end of the day, what we sell is sales training and sales recruiting at the end of the day. So we have 2 companies. The one we're really known for is called Sales Team Accelerator. The other one is called Remote Closing Academy. So those are the 2 companies. They're under the brand closers.io. Okay. So anyways, Sales Team Accelerator essentially helps entrepreneurs who are in the information marketing coaching space, consulting, high ticket services, agency services, really any sort of online high ticket service, to be honest. Recruit, hire, train, manage sales teams. So it's sort of a hybridized, done with you, done for you type of model to where we actually place sales reps, setters, or closers into the company. And then we provide training and resources and all of this different type of support to help them actually grow the sales team. So we work with entrepreneurs who they're maybe hiring their first sales rep. They're at 30, 40, 50K a month, and they're trying to delegate strategy sessions, sales calls for the very first time, all the way up to, multiple 9-figure companies. We work with Agora Financials, $1.5 billion company, helping them with their operational sales systems and even some recruiting and all sorts of different stuff. So that's really that end. The other end is a consumer division where we just basically take somebody who wants to get into sales. But if you're trying to get in sales and you're really trying to get a good gig, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing because people don't want to hire you if you don't have experience. But at the same time, you can only get experience if obviously you get hired. So what we do is we have sort of an incubator program, kind of like a sales incubator, that takes them in and they work with our team directly to role play and generate the skills as much as possible needed to at least get started in an entry-level sales position in the online kind of marketing courses, coaching space, which for salespeople is a really good industry to get started in. So we have that division as well. We're not as known for that. Like we work with a lot of big brand names in the B2B division. So a lot of people know me and my brand for that, which is awesome. But, we do just as much revenue on the B2C division as well. So, and obviously, if you haven't already been able to tell, those things meld together. So right. People who get trained up on this side, they get placed over here. Not all of them. Some of them get their own positions. We teach them how to go out there and actually get their own positions so they're not dependent on us. But some of them will go over and get positions on the B2B side. And then obviously having the B2B opportunities over here helps the client success over here. So there is a network effect that does happen with both of those offers, which is pretty cool. That's pretty rare in my industry that you have sort of these 2 coinciding type of companies, but it works great. And honestly, the thing is, the more they scale, the better the results have actually been. So because our distribution is so big on the B2C side, it's really actually helped our quality on the B2B side. And obviously, if the B2B side continues to scale, we have more demand in which we can ensure client success on this side. That's been pretty cool.
That's huge, man. I mean, and it's completely logical from the B2B side. So said another way, you're helping people. I mean, you said all this, but to recap, you're helping people build out their sales team in all capacities. So recruit, hire, train, get them running, ultimately so that they can hand it off, or so you can hand it off to them, they can run it themselves. And in order to do that, you've got this other side of things where you're training people to be great sales reps that don't have experience. So you've got this huge feeder program that pulls people in so that you can support the bigger clients.
Yep, 100%. And then also, people who will naysay that type of model will say something along the lines of like, well, like all your people who you have coming in, they don't have any real world experience, which it is and is not true. I mean, we have people who buy the certification who have 20 years of sales experience. So that's not entirely true in and within itself. But the other thing is we have a whole nother division of our company that really does headhunting. So it's basically going after people who already have existing sales experience in this actual industry. And we just place them without the certification. Now, they have to have like real experience and be really good. They can't just be like some random person. But if for somebody who maybe, they've been selling for 4 or 5 years in high ticket, they have a demonstrated track record, they're doing, 10, 20, 30 units a month at 10K. So they're pulling a couple million for their company. That person will allow to bypass the certification right into a position. So a lot of the top tier positions get staffed through that. But then the bulk of mid to entry level is from the certification. And then those people, eventually they get their experience and they can go up. So we do both headhunting and the certification, which I do find doing just one or just the other, it just hasn't ever been enough, because when we started, that's what we did. We did just the headhunting for over a year, and then we started doing the certification. So, doing
I want to talk about that.
Fill all the positions.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's also, I want to talk about that because the recruiting for those two different roles can be different, and what you're looking for certainly is different. So I want to talk about recruiting and training, but before we do, can you just give some framework for size and scope of the company? How old are you? How big is it? Whatever metrics you want to give.
Yeah, so we started in 2019. Last month we did about 2.5 million. We've been a little bit plateaued there for a while, so we're pacing 30 million for this year. We should finish over that based on our growth rate. So about 2.5 million a month. And it's really split almost exactly evenly between both companies, both divisions. In terms of employees, we have, I don't know, I never know the exact number, but I mean, we had a team-wide meeting yesterday and we had like 71 people on there. So probably about 75 if, maybe some people were out and couldn't attend that meeting. So yeah, we're getting close to the big 100 number. Hopefully we'll finish this year 40 million. I would say it would be good just based on how we started off and where we're going. And I think I answered your first question, but we started in late 2019. So.
Awesome. And you were going exactly where I wanted you to, which was in the beginning, you were doing things differently than you are now. But in the beginning, you were doing the headhunting thing. So can you tell me just like what your approach is to doing the headhunting? Because that's honestly, look, you can hire recruiters to do it, but recruiters are doing the same thing that you could be doing if you just had the system and the people to do it. So how did you approach that in the beginning, and has it changed over time?
Yeah, so I mean, and this is specific towards like how we go out and find existing sales reps that are good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So essentially, here's the way to think about it, right? And I got to speak it in marketing terms. So in marketing, essentially, if you want to have a really great marketing campaign, it's always based on a really great offer, right? Like the best offer in the marketplace wins to any sort of market segment. So you got to understand recruiting is a very, very similar aspect, right? Like there's a marketplace of these sales reps out there, and the best ones are going to gravitate towards the best offers. And I'm not saying the best offers in terms of what they're selling, which is true, but even more like the best offer for the actual candidate, right? So a lot of the game in recruiting, to be honest, is just creating the best offer for the candidate, and there's a myriad of different ways you can do that. So for me, it's a really, I wish we could say, we have this extremely unique outreach system there where we do all of this unique stuff. I wish we could say that, and we do a lot of outreach, but the main thing is, in high ticket sales, we have I and our company have an excellent brand, right? So we're very known in that industry. Like one of my clients says, I'm your favorite, or I'm your high ticket closer's favorite high ticket closer. So right away, we're known. And then on top of that, we're also known that if you're a sales rep and you actually have legitimate experience, we will place you in a position that's completely vetted. So a lot of with high ticket sales, as kind of an aside, a big frustration these sales reps have, and I know this because I was a sales rep, is that you get these entrepreneurs who overpromise the opportunity and underdeliver, right? Same way as you do with clients. They overpromise, underdeliver. Sure. And so what that looks like is they talk about all the leads they're going to give them. They talk about, the unlimited income potential with the comp structure. They talk about, all of these things, and then they get there. There's not a lot of opportunity. There's not a lot of leads. There's not a lot of training and resources, et cetera. So, with what we're known for to these sales reps is that we actually pre-vet the opportunities before we present them to them. So we won't even take on a B2B client unless we feel like they have a great opportunity. So that's number one. That means great offer, great lead flow, great client results, all of that stuff. And then once they get onboarded, they get access to all of my training for free, right? So essentially the B2B companies buy a license to the training, and these sales reps, if they're actually experienced, get to be a part of one of the best sales environments in this industry for no charge. If they're good. Again, I keep throwing in that caveat of experience there. If they're good. So because of that, our word of mouth and brand and just how we're known in the marketplace to these, every really truly good sales rep in the market, at least in our market, knows who we are. Right? And the reason for that, and the reason we can attract such good ones, is because of what the offer is at the end of the day. They're going to get on a great offer with great income potential based on their experience. That could be $30,000 a month income potential, or if they're a little bit newer, maybe it's $5,000 to $10,000 a month. So we're going to pre-vet the offers for them. It's a great offer, and they get massive amounts of training. So because we have an amazing offer for these sales reps, that's the biggest thing that helps us recruit them, if that makes sense. It's not necessarily that we have this crazy outreach method or that we're running on this, secret advertising platform that nobody knows about, or we found this gold mine of reps. It's more that it's the offer you make to the reps. The same way if you want to win in marketing, it's the offer you make to the clients. So how we actually find them on the headhunting, again, we do some outreach on social and on LinkedIn and all of that stuff. We also just run a tremendous amount of volume. I would say the biggest reason most people don't really hire great in general, especially hire great in sales teams, is they don't have the volume of applications, volume of interviews, volume of final candidates. They're just not filling the funnel, right? They're busy entrepreneurs. They're on the phones. They're like, dude, I got to get off these sales calls where we're so busy. We're so strapped. I mean, that's how every entrepreneur is almost. So they rush they might do 4 or 5 interviews, just hire the best 2, and then they just let them go, right? Whereas a lot of times, I don't even know these metrics off the top of my head anymore, but our recruiting director would know. I think about to get 1 hire, you need about 10 interviews. 10 interviews should get you 3 finalists. And usually the conversion rate from the interviews, you're probably going to need about 50 to 75 applications, right? So you need 50 to 70, and these are legitimate people. This is not $10 a day on Indeed. Oh my God, I got 75 applications. I mean, I'm talking really good candidates, okay? People actually in the industry. So long story short, you need to really fill the top of the funnel to get down. So a lot of it's volume. We'll get 2,000, about 2,500 to 3,000 applications just to get 100 people hired on behalf of our clients.
Right. Okay. So let me pause you for a second because I have 75 questions for you.
Okay.
The first one, and I want to get into how to get the volume, but the first one is I love that you said you said repeatedly in a lot of ways, have a better offer and more people will buy it. And years ago, I remember hearing Ryan Dice say, people ask me how I can get more traffic. And he said, just go to the traffic store and buy it. So there's no problem with traffic. Google and Facebook just give you traffic. The issue is that you don't have a good offer. If you have a good offer, you can buy the traffic for it. And the same thing I think is very true when you're looking for good applicants. The question for me is, before we get into actually how to fill the top of the funnel, I want to know what you did differently in the first year, because you repeatedly say, hey, I've got a great brand, so it attracts people, but you didn't originally, right? I mean, at some point you didn't have a good brand. but you got to this point through a mechanism that worked for you. What do you think was different in the first year before you had the brand?
Yeah, so it's interesting.
Was it just the offer?
Well, part of that, but like you also got to know how I started. So I started just selling a little bit of sales training, but like every sales trainer figures out, nobody wants to buy sales training. So I feel I had to kind of reposition this, and so I started doing coaching instead of doing one-on-one sales training. I started coaching sales teams, and then even that, not a lot of people want to buy that. So then I started doing the recruiting, but all along, what I figured out is like a lot of my content I would put out on Facebook group, YouTube, all that stuff was just hard hitting sales training. I just gave everything away. So I built a good audience from that. And basically throughout that time frame, I would get hit up constantly, and I'd even do it for free. People would ask me, do you know where I can find good salespeople? Where do I find good salespeople? So it got to a point, and this was like right before COVID, to where I was legitimately getting asked like every day or every other day, like, dude, you know where I can find? And I used to just connect people for free because I had all of this big audience that I had built because I'm putting out so much sales training on social and my Facebook group and all these different platforms. But I was only really working with these top tier business owners, helping them train their teams, right? Because if like there's some sort of content to where if you put it out there, you need to like, build the beliefs and the pillars so people buy. But there's also like for me, I just put out the best stuff and then a business owner would see it and they'd just be like, oh, I just need to have this guy train my team. That was like my marketing strategy early on. But in doing so, I built this big audience of sales reps. So when we first got started, all we did was leverage my audience, which is a very obviously hard to replicate way to start if you wanted to build a company like mine. So
Sure.
we just sort of leveraged my audience, and to be candid, the B2C, I always thought that would be the way I scaled. I was like, this B2B thing, it doesn't really scale. It's too done for you. So I'm going to do this B2C thing. That's how I'm going to hit 8 figures, la-da-da-da-da. And what happened was, basically we were leveraging my audience and had really good word of mouth, really good referrals. Then we started doing some outreach in Facebook groups, and then, which we still do. And then basically what I did is started running Facebook ads, which is like a weird thing to do with recruiting. But in our industry, it worked really well. So I started doing that. And obviously I was able to make I ran it like a funnel, like the same thing as like a VSL funnel. I would just run that to get sales recruits through Facebook. And then we did YouTube. And then really as our team built and built and built, now we're on almost every single job platform, TikTok ads, YouTube ads, Facebook ads, everything. And to be honest, I don't think one is really better than the other. Something like Indeed, for instance, you're going to get a massive amount of candidates, but most of them are going to be pretty bad. So there's a lot of filtering that has to go on there. So we just run on all the platforms. And then essentially what we do is we have the same way on a sales team, you might have 6 guys taking calls. We have 6 people who just take interviews, like, I don't know the exact number, but it's probably 6 to 10 interviews a day, every single day, right? And this is after somebody's already been through an application process. Then we actually have them send in a video. So then we assess that we have a guy who literally his full-time job is just watching these videos and then passing people on to the next stage. Then we interview them and then we pass them on to the client, essentially. So that's how we generate the volume and where they come from. The highest quality people are going to come from that word of mouth referral and people who've been in my network and my brand, right? Because if you're a good high ticket closer and you've been in the industry and you're looking for top-notch sales training, you've either been a client of mine or you're at least consuming my free content, maybe on YouTube, on Facebook, or whatever, right? So a lot of like the top 1%ers are going to come from that. And I'd say another bulk of really good people will come from some form of advertising. And like I said earlier, now a lot of the mid to beginning level positions will come from the certification, right? People who are really driven, they're all 100% bought in. They've done a lot of training and role plays and real life stuff, but they just lack some of that real world experience. So they're going to start at the bottom and then move up.
Got it. Okay. So, what I heard was you've got kind of full blown recruiting funnel for the entry level salespeople through ads on all social platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Insta, etc. You also have them on all the typical platforms, and you push them through some sort of screening process, which is either fill out an application or jump through a couple hoops and then send us a video explaining why you think you'd be good or something to that effect before anybody interviews them. Is that right so far?
Yes. Let me say this too. This is really key.
Yeah.
So like part of the reason why Facebook ads, I mean, Indeed or something like that, you can't really do this on, but like part of the reason why we had success on Facebook is again, because of the offer. Okay. So for instance, like I run an ad that's directed towards door-to-door salespeople. And what I'm doing is I'm saying, I don't know the exact copy off the top of my head, but it's something along the lines of like, are you tired of knocking door to door and working 15 hours a day in the hot sun? Right. And basically remote closing or high ticket closing, which is what the industry we staff in, it's fully remote, right? They can make the same, if not more, than they make door to door, and they can do it working remotely. Also selling something that's meaningful. They're not, instead of selling a security system, they might be selling something that, is like, for instance, like we sell sales training. They could sell something like that. They could sell weight loss. Like they're selling something to where the client's actually going to thank them for enrolling them, and it's a lot of times it's cool, fast startup companies. So it's so much of a better opportunity than like solar, door-to-door, timeshare, stuff like that. So a lot of the ads, especially on social, you can't do this as much on the job platforms, are geared towards kind of appealing to that opportunity switch, if that makes sense. So,
totally. The ad can be totally different.
I forget exactly what your question was, but
I didn't ask one, but I'm glad that you gave in and gave context.
Yeah.
What I was going to ask is, do you do the same thing for the B2B side when you're trying to recruit the higher end people? Do you run ads specific to them for the higher end salespeople as well? Or are those people that you rely on pulling from kind of a social audience where they're following your sales content that you give out?
A lot of it. Okay, so here's another thing. A lot of the top-notch people, what'll happen is it usually will go something like this. Some guy who's a stud door-to-door salesperson, just use door-to-door as an example, but typically those guys are good. They'll find out about high-ticket closing and they'll start closing for, Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins are a client with mastermind.com. So let's say they start closing for somebody like that. And they're making $15,000, $20,000 a month. They're working remotely. They're selling something that's really changing people's lives. They're like, where was this, all these years? This is amazing. Especially like these door-to-door groups are so tight knit. That person will start referring all of his friends. So we have built-in referral systems to where our recruiting team will follow up with these people that get placed and work referrals from them to get more sales reps. Because typically really good sales reps know other really good sales reps. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And really there's no secret sauce. I mean, with the referral thing, it's you just got to ask. We do give a little bit of compensation if they give us referrals who get placed. And also if they get an awesome job and they're like loving life and it's changed their lives, like they're going to tell their friends about it. So a big part of our top-notch people are going to come from the brand. They're going to come from, my organic audience, my social, my email list, things like that. And they're going to come from that word of mouth referral pipeline, if that makes sense. So, and they all go through no matter what. They're always going to go through that process of application, video assessment, one-on-one interview, and then we pass them off to the client. The client basically runs my hiring process. So the client will pick it up, do a group interview, then a one-on-one mock call, and then what we call a scorecard interview. And we kind of teach them how to hire and do all that stuff because it's not enough for us to just recommend somebody. There's culture fit, there's, do these people mesh, there's all those things too. So the entrepreneur who we're recruiting for has to pick up some of that as well and kind of get it to the finish line.
And so do you run while we're talking about that specific funnel, do you run every higher end salesperson through a group interview first? Is that always part of the deal?
Yeah. I mean, this is something we're just rolling out with clients. We usually just do the one-on-one interview first, but the group interviews, we tested this internally, and even higher level positions that we're recruiting for, we found the group interview is killer. I'm not really the expert in how to actually conduct those. Like that's our COO brought that to the table and was like, we got to change and do the model like this. And the feedback we've gotten from a few of the test clients that we've done this with and internally is like, it's just night and day. Who on a group interview is the standout performer? So the reason we're implementing that too is because what we're trying to do is collapse the time it takes for you to basically go from not having a sales rep to having, if you're just starting off, let's say, 2 high quality stars, right? And if you do a group interview, let's say you conduct 2, you might be able to get a taste of, 10 different people, five a piece on the interviews. Whereas if you're doing a bunch of one-on-ones to start off with, you might get some good people, you might not, but the chance of you getting the person that you want is so much better when you're starting with that group setting that's very quick. And there's just something about, I think our brain is wired to have or notice things in contrast, right?
Sure.
So it's easier to see who the best person is when you can also see what else is out there, right? And so yeah, we're big on group. It's one of those things where we're like mid, almost probably halfway into rolling it out as like the process, but that's also something that's really exciting. But we put everybody through it.
Interesting. Yeah, certainly for a sales role, you're going to get to see who's going to be assertive, aggressive, confident, pick the attributes. If you're enjoying this, subscribe to the channel. It'll take you like 5 seconds. And then obviously you'll get to see more stuff that you'll also probably enjoy. In addition though, if you like the content in general, the subscriptions are ultimately what drives the channel and what lets us get better guests on the show. We've had some killer guests. We need your help to continue filling that pipeline so we can get the best and the brightest to continue to teach you tactics and strategies to grow your business beyond $1 million. What are the attributes that you're looking for in either group? Is it the same for both salespeople? Does it vary? What are the characteristics you look for?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be always these three things. And so one is, and this is actually for any position. Here's how I think about it. There's three things. There's specialized knowledge, which Naval Ravikant says specialized knowledge is essentially knowledge that can only come from the experience of doing, right? So if you go to get an MBA, that's not specialized knowledge. But if I do 1,000 high-ticket sales calls, that's specialized knowledge, right? If that makes sense. You can't learn it from a book. It's something that only comes from the experience of doing. So that's specialized knowledge. Also, you could think of it as like their demonstrated track record, okay? The second thing is industry acumen, all right? That is their ability to speak the language of the industry and to understand the industry. So for instance, I always use this example, is let's say we got a guy who's from car sales. He's a total stud, right? Total stud. Well, he could have the specialized knowledge and the track record, but if we place him in an offer that helps women balance their hormones and through nutritional alternative therapy, right, which is a real client that we have, well, he's probably not going to do very good, right? Because does he understand the industry and the market? No. Can he speak the language of the women who are having these issues? No, right? And it's just not something the guy's going to resonate with. So it's because he lacks that acumen. I call it acumen. But really, if you think about if you think of each market or each industry as kind of a tribe, we're in the same industry, right? We kind of speak like we have a little bit of a different language. There's certain people, in the industry, there's certain terms. So you have to have somebody that understands that, right? So if you're selling Amazon FBA, we have tons of clients who sell coaching on Amazon FBA, for instance. If you can't place a salesperson there who does not get that at all. I don't care how good they were at timeshare or whatever it was. It's going to be, if it's a true superstar, they'll figure it out. But generally, they got to at least kind of have an interest in it and know what it is, right? They have to have that acumen. So that's number two. The third thing is buy-in, okay? So are they bought in? Are they passionate about the market, about what they're selling or the offer, and also about your mission, vision, and values, right? So now, if you look at those three criteria, you might think, well, damn, it's going to be really hard for me to find a salesperson, which could be true. But really, if you want to have, it's a spectrum, right? So if you want to find somebody who is going to be an absolute gangster, then yeah, you're going to need three. Who can come in and just dominate from day one. Okay, you're going to need all three. But for instance, we have somebody on our team, and they came through the certification, right? We just, took it for ourselves. They had no idea what this industry was. And they had some experience in solar sales, but not high ticket sales. And solar is very different. So a little bit, but not really. Didn't know what the industry was, aside from buying our thing. But what they were was 100% passionate about the opportunity. and our company and our vision, mission, and values and all of that stuff. So this person came in, absolutely dominated it from day one. So you don't need to have all three, but I kind of think like when I'm interviewing somebody, where do they rank on those three things in any position, right? They have to have buy-in no matter what. Because if they're not bought into what they're selling, the market, the mission, vision, and values, it really doesn't matter. And buy-in, the higher the degree of buy-in, the more likely they are to push through challenges that are going to be, they're to come up through the position, right? If they're not passionate about it, you know, same thing was like an entrepreneur. Like what's the age-old advice is like, do something you're passionate about. Because if you're passionate about it, you'll work really hard. Well, it's true. You know, but it's the same with your candidates. And I would say the second thing, I would honestly rather have somebody who could speak the language of the industry opposed to being tremendously experienced. It also depends on the person. Like somebody who's really, really experienced and super bought in will just figure out the industry. But generally, like if somebody has no idea what Facebook ads are, they're going to struggle in our industry. You know? So those are the three things we look for.
When you say experienced, I appreciate that. I like the framework. When you say experienced, do you mean experienced in sales or experienced in this specific category? Because like number one and number two there, the highly experienced and then the acumen in the industries that they have the language down, could be similar or the same, right? Somebody that has a ton of experience selling high ticket, right? Yeah. Where's the division and how do you think about that?
Well, I'm referring to specific selling experience, right? So, and that could be on a spectrum. Obviously, on the worst side would be like, yeah, you know, I was doing some sort of, I'm trying to think of an example, but you know, like honestly, like insurance. You know,
sure.
That could be. I mean, if it's a really good insurance agent, that could be great. But then obviously the best would be like, oh yeah, I was just selling, you know, let's say we're recruiting for an Amazon FBA offer, just to use that example again. The highest side of experience would be they just got done selling an Amazon FBA offer, right? So that would be the best. And especially for clients like that, we can get them people like that because that's our kind of distribution. You know, a little bit worse than that would be maybe they were doing, you know, door-to-door sales. I mean, that's really good, right? Like that's hard, straight up. And then, you know, solar's up there, timeshare's up there. Insurance, depending on if they were good. You know, if they were like, man, if they were really hitting the pavement hard, doing a lot of cold calls and closing deals, it just was a bad opportunity. That's really good. Like for instance, one of our sales managers, he started off, he was making $5K a month, cold calling people, selling them insurance. I was like, dude, that's pretty tough.
Right.
Like you're probably going to be really good at this. So there's that. Yeah. And then, you know, it's the further away, it's like a concentric circle, right? Like the further you kind of get away from the bullseye, obviously the less the experience really matters.
Yeah, I tend to think about sales experience as, and you've said this, I think, in different ways, but the framework that I've always had in my head and what we look for are people that have sold something similar. And I break that into categories of how short or long is the sales cycle, right? Are you going to do a one-call close, or is this like a multi-week or multi-month sales cycle? Is it tangible or is it intangible? Those are the big ones. Or is it high ticket, low ticket, right? But that usually correlates with the sales cycle.
Exactly.
But somebody that's used to selling, you know, cars where they've got a tangible object in front of them, moving into insurance sales, which is like a conceptual sale where you've got to use your words to explain the concept, those tend to not map very well.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. I would 100% agree.
Yeah,
with
and
that.
that's how that's why I asked about the difference between point one and point two, right? Is that idea of experience in sales versus the specific of the industry. But I figured there was alignment there.
A great example is we found it depends on the software sales, but a lot of software so you know, high ticket sales or coaching, consulting, course sales, info products, stuff like that. Typically a really short sales cycle. And depending on what it is, I mean, like our B2B kind of falls in that industry, but it's not really an emotional sale. I mean, every sale is emotional, but I think you get what I mean. It's most of, you know, high ticket is a very emotional sale, right? Think about like selling high ticket weight loss, right? we find
let's break that down for a second, because you're in your world, you're saying high ticket, right? And so it makes sense to you, it makes sense to me. But to a lot of people, they don't, first of all, the language of high ticket in general, they're like, I don't know what the fuck that means. Second, can you define it a little bit? Like, what's an example of a typical, like, you've got a client that sells, high ticket means an expensive product, right? But you've got these B2B clients that sell an expensive product. What is that typical product?
Yeah, well,
and how much is it?
I could give you a ton of examples. So typically, the main ones are coaching, courses, consulting, agency services, right? High ticket is typically $3,000 or more. Also,
in the case of coaching or information, it would be, an example would be like, hey, we're going to sell you a $5,000 course on how to invest in real estate. Or we're going to sell you a $10,000 or $20,000 coaching package to coach you on how to invest in real estate. And you'll meet with a coach once a week or once a month or whatever. And that's what you're selling.
Yeah, I mean, the big categories, biz ops, a huge one, right? So anything that's helping somebody start a business, whether that's on Amazon or getting started wholesaling or anything along those lines. You know, there's also, there's business opportunity. There's anything in terms of financial information. So that could be like one of our biggest clients teaches people certain strategies with cryptocurrency, right? There's Forex, there's all that stuff. There's also dating, so anything to do with relationships. There's health, so anything to do with that. I mean, you know, that could be weight loss, right? But it also could be, you know, we had this, like I already said, but this super cool client that was helping women balance their hormones through alternative nutrition therapy. And it was like extremely sophisticated type of protocol they were going on. So that's really cool. There's also anything that does with like mindset, spirituality, stuff like that. And then there's also business services. So that could be like what we do, like sales recruiting. That could be any sort of lead generation service, right? Agency service, done for you service, anything like that. Any sort of like business related consulting, like another one of our clients helps people build scalable fulfillment systems. And so any of those things, all of them are probably going to be over $3,000 at least, upwards of 50,000, 100,000 sometimes. And so that would be what's referred to as high ticket. I don't really like the term high ticket either, but you know, it's just kind of the term you got to throw around, you know.
Yep. No, I got it. And it is in our world, certainly in the processing world, we talk about the size of the ticket, right? The size of the transaction all the time. But I'm also acutely aware of the fact that many people do not.
Yeah. Of course.
So, all right. So let's shift a little bit and talk about the actual sales process, right? Because obviously, so like internally as a business owner, you've gotten very good at building the pipeline and the funnel to recruit people and build the sales team and train the sales team. And that in and of itself is a huge deal. What is it that you're teaching from a sales perspective? What are the steps to the sale? How do you get people good at that, right? What do you have to go through to close a high ticket sale?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So my philosophy, and I basically just made this up after taking like 3,000 sales calls. Okay, so what happened was I was taking a bunch of sales calls and I was really trying to figure out like, how do I say this? Like some sort of checklist I could do or some sort of way where if I covered these points, I would make the sale, right? And I don't think there's any sort of foolproof way you can ever do that. But the way I sort of figured this out is I realized if there's a certain amount of things I can cover, sort of like tick the boxes on a sales call, it'll eliminate the objections before the close, okay? So here's what I came up with over tons of time doing this. And I first just used this as myself. I wasn't even teaching this. And then when I started teaching it, I was like, well, here's what I was doing, guys. So basically there's 7 beliefs the prospect needs to have to buy. There's pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, trust. So pain is, do they have a problem? There's 2 types of problems. There's like, you have back pain, right? That's like an actual problem. And then there's also a unfulfilled desire. That's like, you do maybe, all the triathlons and stuff like that. Obviously that's not a pain. If like, let's say you invest in a coach to help you set a new all-time personal best record or hit a track that you've never done before, that's not necessarily a pain. You're investing in that to serve a unfulfilled desire. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
yes.
You could kind of think of like there's pain or there's also just some sort of a gap between where they are now to where they want to be. That's the first core belief. The second belief, and so pain is the most important one, because all the other 7 are predicated on this one, okay? Doubt is the reason why they just don't want to do this on their own, right? Can they not do it on their own? Do they not have the skills, abilities? Do they want to get there faster? It doesn't mean necessarily getting them in the sales conversation to admit that like, oh, I can't do it. You know, it's not like that. It's just like, what is the reason why at the end of the conversation, they're not going to say, you know what, man, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, or no, we're just going to figure this out. The third belief is cost, okay? That means, is the cost of inaction, the pain of the inaction, greater than, is the pain, yes, the pain of inaction, is it more than the pain in terms of time, energy, and resources of investing in your program? Right? So like a big part about how Tony Robbins, like if you ever go to UPW, he takes people through like the Dickens. And what that's doing is it's building leverage on themselves. Okay? It's building this cost of if I don't do anything to where the future cost of pain becomes greater than the pain of actually taking the action in the form of time, energy, money, reputation, all of those different things. So that's cost. Desire is the compelling payoff of fixing the pain. Pretty simple. Like what's the goal? Support is, do people around them, close to them, support them in fixing the pain? Spouse, business partner, etc. And you know, if this is a complex sale, it could be their team, it could be the direct report, it could be the CEO, it could be the CFO, right? Do people around them support them in making the decision, in fixing the pain? And then money, which is, do they have the resources and willingness to fix the pain? Money has 2 parts. Resources is like, do they physically have either the budget, or if it's like, let's say a BizOp program. I mean, can they physically afford it? Like it might be 10K. They don't even have 10K in their bank account and they have a 400 credit score, right? So there's more of a logistical side. And then willingness is like, are they actually willing? So for instance, the way I always teach this one is I was reviewing a sales call one time of a dating coach who was trying to enroll an attorney, but the dating program was 5K. The attorney really wanted to fix it, or fix his dating life, but it wasn't worth 5K. So he wasn't willing. He wanted to, but he wasn't willing. Willingness also comes from there not being enough cost. Okay? So there's money. The last one is trust, right? And that's, do they trust you? Do they trust the company? And most importantly, do they trust your specific methodology to fixing the pain? Right? Are they bought in on your thesis on how to get from where they are now to where they want to be? So when people buy, okay, here's a great example. When people buy our consumer sales training that helps them get into high ticket sales and make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month, right? Really, that's a thesis on a certain way somebody can make money online and have an alternative career to the typical 9 to 5. So are they bought in to that thesis being the fastest, most effective, best way for them right now based on their situation to get from where they are now to where they want to go? When somebody comes in and works with us in terms of like a sales team, we have a very specific way in which we believe to build internal sales teams. So our sales process is basically, you know, it's doing all those 7 things, but one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing, is helping them, or helping build the belief that our method of building a sales team is the best way to actually do it, right? If you're a health coach, you might like really love the ketogenic diet, right? That might be your method. So you're trying to get people to buy into your thesis on how to get from X to Y, right? So that's trust. Trust has 3 parts. So there's 7 beliefs, right? So the way I construct the sales process is basically to tick the boxes and build those beliefs through questions, okay, so Socratic dialogue, through asking questions to build those beliefs before we transition to the close or make an offer or anything like that. And if we can do that, what happens is instead of having to like hard close the prospect or handle a bunch of objections, the prospect, because they already believe all the things they need to believe to be true to buy, they're just going to close themselves and not look at you as like a hardcore salesperson, but as a leader. So that's kind of how I designed it. And it really, you know, to be honest, I've read a bunch of sales books, but I never found sales books to be that helpful. That straight up just came from like experience. And it came from me basically kind of figuring out this way and system to do calls to where I was like, if I can cover these things in the conversation, I can eliminate the objections before the close, right? Because when you build those beliefs, what happens is, if you read Influence by Robert Cialdini, not Persuasion, but Influence, he talks about the highest driver of human behavior is to appear consistent, right? So when we can build those beliefs, right? Because the 7 beliefs are also every single objection you could ever get is the inverse of those 7. So if we can build those beliefs and build that consistency bias on the call, we're not going to get objections because their highest driver of behavior is to appear consistent. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it does. I want to talk about that. I want to dig into that because I love that as a framework, and it's unusual relative to that question. When I ask people that question, they usually go down the road of the logistics, the mechanics of the pitch and the close, right? And you pulled it back before you even get to the mechanics of it. It was what I'm trying to accomplish through the mechanics is hitting on these 7 things, which I love. I also want to highlight the Dickens process because you flew by that, but the Dickens process is something that Tony Robbins started doing years and years and years ago. We'll put a link in the show notes. We'll put a link in the show notes and you can dig in that way. But I want to talk about the tactical side of this. So like you come in and you're selling different products for different people. So you're consistently crafting the sales pitches for these different B2B companies that you work for to sell their stuff. And presumably, they know the product, they know what they're selling, they know the USP to some extent, the unique selling proposition. How do you think about approaching the sales process, scripting, talk tracks, whatever, to make sure that you're hitting on those 7 things as you lead the prospect into commitment?
Yeah, it really depends on it. A lot of it is it's so similar. I used to be a little bit all over the place and like some scripts would be different than others, but I really feel like and here's the thing. Okay. So you start off with a call introduction. That's rapport and frame the call, right? That's our rapport, set the agenda. That's like some 101 stuff. Then you go into the information gathering phase, right? That's where you're asking all the questions, and that's where you're using Socratic dialogue to build those 7 beliefs, okay? So you can do that in any order that you want. Really, what I found, as long as you hit all 7, you're good. But there's after doing this so many times, what I realized is there's basically 2 primary syntaxes that you can use to execute those 7. Okay. And also the trust one is a lot of times built through the pitch, right? Because you're buying into the thesis. The thesis is the pitch. So really the 6 are built through the information gathering phase. So typically we start off, and again, businesses, okay, so it always starts off with addressing what the problem is. Okay, either the problem or the goal, because we want to find that gap, right? So I kind of want to know, like, why are we on the call? What is the problem? So we always have to start with the problem. Business is about solving problems. That's because when you solve a problem, you create value, and people exchange money for value. So if we know that to be true, sales is really just a demonstration we can solve a problem for somebody else. And if there's no problem, there's no sale, right? And again, it could be an unfulfilled desire, right? So think about it, there's got to be some sort of gap. So the first question we're going to ask is always going to elicit the problem and then just probe into that a little bit. Okay? And then from there, we're going to go into something called background questions. So if I'm selling like a business offer, I have to know like, what are the, I just got to know like the basic stuff, right? So I'm going to kind of address the problem. Then I'm going to, okay, I got this. Hold that there for a second. Then I need to know like, what's their business? What are they selling? What are the terms? What are the price points? How is like kind of their acquisition system working? What is like the business model? I just got to know the basics. That can take 2-3 minutes. Okay. Then once I get that, I have the problem, and then I'm going to go into the other 7. Okay. So from there, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the problem, maybe chunk down all these different things. Eventually, once I have a clear grasp of what the problem is, I'm going to ask, how long has this problem been going on for? So we have the pain. We're like, boom, we got it. Now we're going to stretch the pain. Okay. And then once we do that, I'm usually going to follow that up with, so now we have, okay, it's been going on for 2 years. What have you tried in the past to fix this, if anything? And I'm going to ask a set of what's called solution-based questions. So solution-based questions are basically to assess what other things have they tried to do to fix the problem, right? I need to know this Because if I'm selling an agency service, let's say their problem is lead generation. I'm an agency, done for you agency. Well, let's say they've had this problem for 2 years. I stretch it and I figure out, well, they've hired 3 other agencies. Well, I risk, if I just pitch them, they're immediately going to be like, yep, this is just like those other 3 that I did. So I need to figure out who they viewed in the past. What did they like about it? What they did not like about it? And I need to figure out all of that information about what went well, what went bad, what they were doing, so I can position what I'm going to pitch later on as the simultaneous explanation of why everything they tried in the past has failed and why this is going to be different. Okay? So I stretch the pain. I ask solution-based questions, right? To figure out what they've used in the past and what the experience of those was. Okay?
Love it.
Then what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to try to build some cost. And there's a million different ways you can do this. This is the easiest way I've ever found. Is let's say it's somebody who needs to lose weight, right? So you really get clear on the problem with weight loss. I mean, that's like going to take 2 seconds because they're just going to like vomit on you. Here's all my issues. I can't lose weight. Okay, how long has this been going on? I've really been trying to lose this for 10 years. Wow, what else have you tried in the past? If anything. Have you tried other diets? Oh, I've been on Atkins, I've been on this, I've been on that, I've been on that. They say all these different things they've been on. And it's like, man, you've really tried everything. Like, yeah, I know. So like, I just want to commend you for a second, but can I ask you a personal question? They're like, yeah. You've tried this, you've tried that, you've tried this. And I mean, you've been working at this for 10 years now. Like, why is this so important to you? Like, what has you keep it on? Like, what about figuring this out so that you can get down to 200 pounds? Like, what about that is so important to you that has you pushing through? And when you can frame it that way, and I even say, like, you even kind of want to stutter when you say that. Like, you're almost at a loss for words. You can't find the words. So when you say it like that, what's going to happen is what you're doing there is as I took the pain, I stretched it. I elicited all these things they've been trying to do in the past to be able to fix the pain. And then I'm basically pointing out that behavior and asking them to justify it to me in the form of why is that so important to you? Because obviously you've invested so much, you've tried so hard, you're on this call with me right now. Like what has you keep it on? Like, what about doing this is so important to you now though, So because I do it, instead of asking the typical sales question of like, well, like, why is this important to you? You see how I built so much context? So I asked permission. I said, can I ask you a personal question? Permission increases compliance. And can I ask you a personal question presupposes I'm going to get a personal answer. And then I build all of this context. And then I ask them, hey, like, I don't say this explicitly, but it's basically, can you justify that behavior to me? Again, the highest driver of behavior is to appear consistent, right? So they're going to start justifying that behavior. It's going to increase the compliance of response. Because like a lot of the questions you ask in sales are pretty standard. The key is getting good answers, right? The key is compliance to your questions. So anyways, I know I'm going on a long one here, but basically,
it's great.
We elicit the cost there by doing that. An easy way you can follow that one up with is, they might tell you some stuff. If they don't tell you like enough, you say, I guess that makes sense. Is there any other reason you want to do it now though? And that any other reason question, it's like a lot of times, like the first time they'll give you kind of some sort of BS. The second time they'll give you the real answer. It's weird how that works. So, like I asked this question to a guy one time, and it was like something about, I forget the exact situation, but it was something about along the lines of like him wanting to finally be successful with his business. And when I asked him that second time, he's like, my wife didn't believe in me and I want to prove that bitch wrong. And so that was what he said to the follow-up to the question. And then so after that, we got the pain, we got the pain, we got the solution-based questions, which we needed. We got cost. Okay. Then we need to go to desire. And then typically, once we really have that pain and we've elicited it, then we ask, now, if it's a business partner or a wife, is she, okay, well, this is really important to you. Your wife's name is Nancy. Is Nancy supportive of you doing X, Y, and Z so that you can A, B, and C? right? That's where we kind of can gauge that. There's discovery questions there. Then we go on to desire. Then we transition to the close, and that's where we pitch. We build the trust and the thesis. So I know it was a mouthful. This is like a 2-hour training in terms of sales process, but I'm trying to kind of give you like
That's awesome.
Yeah, the basics there.
No, dude, it's great. And I know you're giving the example of weight loss, but that whole construct applies. I can see very clearly how it applies to every sale, and it applies to low ticket, high ticket, B2C, B2B. Those things are the same because the drivers for decision making ultimately might vary, but on a human level, those components all exist. And one of the things that I liked a lot was stretching out the pain.
Yes.
And you, even though you didn't frame it the same way, after you had stretched out the pain, the question of why is this so important to you is digging deeper into the pain, and it's making them reflect on and verbalize why it's so important. So they have to remember at that point, no, I really do want to do this. Oh yeah, no, I really do want to buy right now.
Yeah, and the thing is too,
beautiful.
You're eliciting what you really want to find. And so everybody asks me, well, how do I know when I've gone deep enough? What you want to find is the moment of decision, right? The moment of decision, you probably I think everybody's had the experience where they've let their health get a little bit out of order. And they wake up, after that heavy night of drinking on a Sunday, and they're like, dude, I got to freaking get my shit together, right? It's like a moment of decision, right?
I don't know what you're talking about. Never happened to me.
We always want to re-elicit the moment of decision, especially when trying to find the cost and really trying to go deep into the pain of why they want to do it now. So for instance, I'll give you 2 examples. One time, a guy, when I went deep enough, he told me the reason he really wanted to scale his business is to retire his wife. Well, how long has that been a goal? A long time. Why is it so important now? And it's basically because a shooter went into the school 2 weeks ago, and his wife was fine, but it gave him such a scare that he was like, I have to, I have to find a way to retire, So that was his reason, right? And not everybody's gonna have a reason like that, but when he says that reason, the moment of decision is the time where we draw the line in the sand, step across it, right? Well, when he says that out loud, what happens is he re-elicits all the experiences associated with that time, which are the emotions of change, right? Another one, this is another one, but I went through the whole question sequence, and basically the woman said her daughter, it was about weight loss. It's like her daughter hopped on her lap and said, "Mommy, you feel squishy." And that experience, it's one of those things that was at this crazy breakdown, crying, tear. No, but it was that was the moment in the sand. So when they tell you that, they re-elicit the moment of decision. They're re-eliciting all the emotions associated with that.
Yeah, we're at time here, but I love it, man. It's super helpful, great context. Always good to see you. Where can people find out more about you or about the company?
Yeah, Instagram, Cole Thomas Gordon is good, or also Facebook, just facebook.com/cole.gordon.714. Either one of those is good. I put a lot of content out on those platforms, and be happy for you guys to follow. So we'll have to do it. We'll have to do it again, man. We should have done one on sales team, and then another one on just the sales stuff. So
you got nothing but time, man. We'll definitely get behind the camera again, behind the mic again sometime soon.
Alrighty. I'll see ya.
Great to see you, brother. Thanks, man.
Thanks for checking out this Beyond a Million episode. It occurred to me just now that I never tell people to leave comments, and that's probably really stupid. I should tell you to leave a comment. So if you have any questions, or you liked the show, or you hated the show, it would be awesome if you would leave a comment. It makes a big difference in helping other people find it. Leave a comment below.